Our video today is about Indian removal and the Trail of Tears. Remember, at any time during this video you can pause it or rewind it if you've missed something. For Thursday's class, I want you to be able to answer these 5 questions. Please make sure you have written down the answers to these 5 questions so that you are able to discuss them in class. Now, we can't talk about Indian removal without first talking about Andrew Jackson. He is going to become a national hero after the War of 1812 and then will be elected to the presidency in 1828. You might recognize his face from the $20 bill. Now, Andrew Jackson's appearance on the $20 bill has actually been quite controversial over the years, and some of the reasons for this controversy will be discussed in the following slides. So a little bit more info on Andrew Jackson. He had a fiery personality, and he's going to rise very quickly through the ranks of Tennessee politics. An example of his fiery personality is that in 1806, he had a minor misunderstanding over a horse race, and he ended up dueling with another man, and the other man fired first and hit Jackson in the chest, and Jackson didn't act like he was hurt at all and aimed and killed the other guy and carried the bullet in his chest around with him forever as a reminder of this duel. He is going to gain national fame in the War of 1812. So the War of 1812 was fought between the Americans and the British, and his regiment, Jackson's regiment, is going to be ordered to fight in New Orleans. And there he is going to come into a conflict with the Creek Indians. And this is going to happen in 1813 in the area that was known as the Mississippi region, and now I think it's southern Alabama. But in 1813, Creek forces are going to react to a previous attack by the Mississippi militia, and they are going to attack a ford and kill 250 people and take 100 people as captives. And this is going to lead to several engagements between Jackson and the Creeks. And in March 1814, Jackson is going to annihilate the main Creek force. And after this annihilation, it's going to break the Creek's power of resistance, and it's going to completely terrify the other southwestern Native American tribes, even those who were fighting as Jackson's allies. And in the years after the war, Jackson is going to negotiate treaties between all of the major southwestern tribes, including the Creeks, the Choctaws, the Chickasaws, and the Cherokees, and he's going to get them to surrender millions of acres in land, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the following slides. But just for an example, the Creek are going to lose 22 million acres of land in southern Georgia and central Alabama after this defeat. Some other conflicts between Jackson and Native Americans is when he subdued the Seminole Indians in Florida in 1817, and his actions in and around Florida are going to lead to the Spanish seceding Florida to the United States. So really, we have Andrew Jackson to thank for Disney World. So thanks, Andrew. We appreciated it. Now, currently at this time, the state of Native American affairs have been deteriorating. Most native nations have been largely erased or removed from the northeastern United States by the time Jackson becomes president in 1828. However, the Southwest, and remember when we say Southwest, we're talking about the southwest part of the country at the time. Remember, the country is only extending from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi is where people are living, and then of course the Louisiana Purchase bought us the land from the Mississippi to the Rocky Mountains, but that's not really, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not really where people are living at the time. So when we talk about the Southwest, we're talking about the southern colonies, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, that region. So in that region, we have the Cherokees, Chickasaws, Choctaws, and Creeks. And like I said, their homelands are going to be parts of Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. So just so you have a visual of kind of where we're talking about, this is where Cherokee Nation is located, right in here. And if you can look around, you can see here where the Choctaws were located, the Chickasaws, the Creek, the Seminoles down here. So basically, this is the region we're talking about right now, and Cherokee Nation is going to be the largest nation at the time. Before we can talk about specific policies, I think it's important to answer the question, did Jackson hate Native Americans? And you can kind of think about this on your own and draw your own conclusions, but here are some things to think about. He was friendly with individual Native Americans that he knew that he had fought with in the army, but he didn't think they should be treated as foreign nations. For example, we shouldn't treat them the same way we treated Great Britain or France. He did believe that Native American civilization was inferior to whites, and he believed that they did not own their own land, and instead he thought of Native Americans like tenants. So they were living on the land because the government was allowing them to, not because they had any rights to it. So what Jackson is going to do is he is going to push this Indian Removal Act through Congress, the Indian Removal Act of 1830. And what this act is going to do is grant presidential funds and authority to remove Native Americans by force if necessary. And the states are going to begin to put immense pressure on Native Americans. We're going to look at Georgia as an example. Georgia is going to pass laws that extend jurisdiction, and jurisdiction means the official power to make legal decisions and judgment over Cherokee Nation. And this is going to start a lot of conflicts between the idea of tribal authority and state authority. And this had already been going on before Jackson came to office, but this is really going to get pretty intense at this point. Some quick information about Cherokee Nation. They are going to be the most assimilated of the southern tribes. So when I say assimilated, I mean they are going to have adapted the best to white culture of any of the other southern tribes. And they are going to try legal resistance to removal, and we're going to talk about that in a slide or two. In 1827, they proclaimed themselves an independent Republic of Georgia. And remember that their culture has been thriving for hundreds of years before the initial European contact. And at this point in 1836, it is the size of it is a little bit over 6,000 square miles, and it's home to roughly 9,000 people. Some other information about the Cherokee. By the 1830s, they, like I said, had adopted European ways of life. They spoke English, they dressed European, they adopted many cultures. They were farmers, they lived in nice houses. A man named Sequoyah had developed an alphabet for the Cherokee. They had a newspaper. Like I mentioned before, they had a Republican government. So they are going to be very similar to the Europeans. So after the Indian Removal Act, the Cherokee are going to resist the efforts of the Jackson administration through the courts. So there are two court cases, one Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, and then Worcester versus Georgia the next year. And that, in the second case, the Supreme Court is going to uphold the tribe's independence from state authority. However, Jackson is going to really not care what the Supreme Court says, and he is going to encourage Georgia to ignore the federal rulings. So at this point, you're going to get kind of two different factions of Cherokee growing. One is led by John Ross, and he is a Cherokee nationalist. He is the principal chief of the Cherokee, and he is going to be in charge of the faction who thinks the Cherokee deserve to stay and it is their land. And he is opposed by a group known as the Treaty Party. And when we talk about the Treaty Party, we're really talking about three main figures, and you can read their name in the chart below the picture. And they are going to think that the best course of action for the Cherokee is to, in fact, move west and create a new life there. So take a minute and read through this chart and look at the differences between John Ross and the Treaty Party. So the Treaty Party is going to act on behalf of the entire Cherokee Nation and sign the Treaty of New Echeta. And this treaty is going to cede all Cherokee land to the United States for $5.6 million and free transportation west. Most Cherokee are going to denounce the treaty. And even though it wasn't sanctioned by the official Cherokee national government, which remember was headed up by John Ross, the United States Senate is going to ratify the treaty by one vote. So John Ross is going to gather 16,000 Cherokee signatures against the treaty, but it's not going to work. and Cherokee are so mad about this that they're going to actually, a group of them is going to murder the three principal signers of the treaty. However, it's too late, and the U.S. Army is going to round up as many Cherokee as they could into temporary stockades. So take a minute and read this quote and see how life was during this roundup in the stockades. After the Cherokee are forced into the stockades, they still have to move west, and this journey is going to come to be known as the Trail of Tears. Now, there are a few reasons why the Cherokee were removed. The first reason is that there was a growing demand for arable land during the rampant growth of cotton agriculture. So what this means is the Cherokee had good farming land and the white people wanted it to grow cotton. They also discovered gold on Cherokee land. And thirdly, there was simply just racial prejudice toward Native Americans from white Southerners. Traveling the trail. Okay, so things are not going to be great as they travel the trail, as you might have guessed from the name. It's going to be about 13 groups of 1,000 people, and they are going to be led west from Oklahoma, or to Oklahoma and Arkansas. They're going to be forced to walk or ride in wagons or on boats. Originally, the plan was to go by water, but due to a drought, they ended traveling largely by land. It's going to be about 4 months of travel guarded by soldiers. However, John Ross is eventually going to negotiate it so the Cherokee can lead their own groups west in smaller, own people west in smaller groups, excuse me. And they are going to arrive at the destination in a very cold winter in the late 1830s. Here is a map of the trail that you can peruse with your own time. The following 3 slides are quotes describing the Trail of Tears. Please take some time to pause the video and read them. So the effects of the trail, an estimated 4,000 of the 15 to 16,000 Cherokee died on the trail. That's about a fifth of the population. The fifth of the population is dead. That's a lot. The Cherokee named it the trail where they cried. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it in Cherokee because I know I'd bungle it. And another effect of the trail is the Cherokee Rose. It's a legend that has come from the trail. And the legend is that mothers kept crying along the trail because of the suffering and the deaths and the hardships. And so the chiefs prayed for something to lift the spirits of the mothers. And white roses are going to grow where the mother's tears fell. And you can see a picture right here of the Cherokee roses. And these are real flowers that exist today. The white petals on the rose stand for the mother's tears, and the gold in the center stands for the gold that was stolen from the Cherokee lands. And the 7 leaves on the rose represent the 7 clans of the Cherokee that made the journey. So this is a pretty horrific event in American history. So please be prepared to talk about it tomorrow in class. Remember to answer the 5 questions at the beginning of the video and be prepared to discuss them. And here are the sources I used if you want to check out any more information on the Trail of Tears. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson.